Good afternoon, everyone. I hope Guru has not put any pills in the lunch. Everyone are awake. So thanks for that awesome game. I am a bit sad also because my session is immediately after lunch. But I am also happy because security is not coming at the last. So about me, my name is Mohammed Siyam. I work at Toyota Connected India. I don't repair cars, by the way. I'm more into security domain. I see a lot of architects here, so I'm a bit different. So what we do is we review your code, we review your architecture, and we try to find some vulnerabilities in that. I'm having around 18 years of experience in IT. From Bangalore, the west coast of India, and I like teaching. That is what I'm doing now. I like traveling, and I also like eating a lot. These are some of the certifications that I hold. These are industry standard certifications. I'm passionate about Kubernetes and anything that is related to security. Any question about my? Sorry?
This is the purple one?
That is certified DevSecOps professional. DevSecOps. Practical DevSecOps.
Probably your name also like Siyam. Siyam.
Sorry?
Your name matches.
Siyam.
Yeah.
German Siyam.
Okay. I don't know if these slides are visible. Okay. So these are some of the I think there are some scary things if you read the headlines. It says Tesla reveals data breach affected 75,000 plus current and former employees. I just put this because I am from automotive domain and I think Tesla is also market leader there. Capital One, which is also one of the organizations that had a data breach, and this effectively happened because one of their Kubernetes API server was not behind the firewall. There is a website called as Showdown. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. Please don't visit that in your organization laptop. You can visit that website in your own computer because there are few things there which shows you a lot of vulnerabilities that are existing in any of the servers throughout the world. So if you go there and search for any Kubernetes API server that are exposed to public, you will get a lot of it.
Site name? Site name?
Sorry?
Site name.
Showdown. SHODAN. Showdown.
Mobile is safe, right?
Not with this Wi-Fi.
It depends. It's like a Google search. You have to put the right keyword, okay, if you are organization. So exposed API server and a company name. So if it's exposed somewhere in the world, it will come out there. Okay. Showdown. SHODAN. Okay, just Google will get it. It also shows a lot of CC cameras that are exposed public. You can go see that. So, I won't recommend that, but what I'm trying to say here is that if anything is exposed, it's just a matter of time it's coming into the internet. So everything would be there. Okay. So this is about some awareness actually. And what trends that we see is that Kubernetes is one of the most popular orchestrators. I think most of you agree with this. And it will have an annual growth of 24.74 by the year 2031. And I think most of them use Kubernetes, if I'm not wrong. There was Docker Swarm, I think it has its own challenges, but Kubernetes is like, the moment you start working with that, people fell in love with that and then they just use that, right? So it's becoming more and more popular. And if anything becomes more popular, then it is at risk as well, right? Because there are a lot of people out there who try to attack that, exploit that, find some, just try to find something valuable out of it, right? And these are some statistics which is done by Red Hat. And the question was, in past 12 months, have you experienced any of the following impact to your business as a result of container Kubernetes security or compliance issues or incident? If you see, most of them, they say project delays and revenue or customer loss, right? And some say fine, legal action or lawsuit, and some employee termination. And when we ask the question, when Red Hat asked the question, what is the biggest concern about company's container strategy? Most of them say it's a security. It doesn't not sufficiently address container security threats, inadequate investment in container security. Security is the most concerning topic for any organization. So this is a survey which is done by Red Hat, right? So just see that 46% revenue or customer loss, right? So if there is any cyber security incident, right, then the most impactful thing is for your organization is the revenue loss. And it can happen because of other reasons, but there would be a loss of customers as well. Customers may not be able to visit your application, they will not use your application because of the incident that happened. So we have to be very mature in protecting the data of our customers. Okay. So there are a lot of laws that are applicable for any organization. The organization itself will have some, some kind of policies, rules, etc. Plus, there are regulatory laws. For example, GDPR. I think you would have worked for European customers. So GDPR, there is a strict law there. If the data, is breached, then you will have a lot of fine. The company can go in a bankruptcy, right? And I think India is also coming up with something like that. It is called as DPDP. Okay. Maybe you guys are not aware of that because the bill is being passed in the parliament, but it's yet to be enforced. DPDP, Digital Privacy Data Protection. DPDP. It's like Indian GDPR.
Is it formulated by SARTI?
Sorry?
SARTI is another organization, right?
CERTIN is a different organization, but this is more in terms of data protection. CERTIN is a different.
SARTI may be organization and DPDP is kind of a policy.
Yes, correct. So CERTIN, so for example, if there is a breach happening in your organization, then you are supposed to report it to CERTIN under a stipulated time. So CERTIN is an organization in India, and there are other laws like IT law, etc. But DPDP especially, it comes out for data protection. For example, you can now have eligibility of saying that I want you to erase my data from your system. You can say that. Similarly, I think it is there in GDPR also, right? Right to data erasure, right? So that law is coming also to India. So you will have less of spam calls and all those things going forward. Okay. There is a quote. How many of you know this lady, Liz Rice?
Sorry?
Liz Rice. Have you heard of Liz Rice? No?
Is it Rice?
Sorry?
Rice?
No, Liz Rice. She is famous in container space. She has written a few books in containers. And what she says is, in Kubernetes, security needs to be built in and not bolted on. What do you understand by this statement? Any guesses?
It needs to be like part of the system itself. You can't create a system and then put security on top of it.
Right.
Out of the box, basically. Out of the box is made.
No, so what Sir says is,
Yeah, I just said it needs to be like part of the system from an internal perspective. You can't just make the system without security and then put security on top of it and expect it to work.
correct. That's right. So we are talking about shift left security here. That when you are designing any system, and if you are using, let's say, Kubernetes, you have to build the security at the very initial stage itself, not once when it is deployed or in its production, right? A lot of people feel that, okay, I am using Kubernetes, it's already secure. It's not secure. It has some configuration, and you have to, play around with that configuration to make it more secure.
But security is on the each layer, like applications related to Kubernetes Docker, each layer is having different security.
Different security. But I am specifically talking about Kubernetes. So every layer in your software development has a security. That is, we talk about shift-left security. For example, when you start your software development, you have architectures, right? You create architecture, you do designs, all these things. So that is where security has to be built in. What do you do in security during that phase? Threat modeling, right? So threat modeling is you review your designs, you review your architecture, find what could be the potential threats for my application, and then developer writes the code. You do a source code review. So your security is also built in there. And once it goes to the next layer, you will have automated scanning tools like SAS, SCA. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of those things. SAS is basically scanning your source code for any vulnerability. SCA, software component analysis. Developers usually don't write the code. You write the code, but it's not like you write 100% of code, right? You would bring in some libraries from internet.
Because already framework is there. Then nowadays, like microservices talk about in place of doing the development for 100 days, why you minimize that part?
Yeah.
Then developer does not need to do everything.
Yeah.
Because each separate framework is there, they have to take care of it.
Correct. For example, let's say Node.js, right? Or any jQuery, right? So traditionally we used to do that in JavaScript. If I want some animation and
Yeah, in
things
a
like that.
monolithic architecture, you are doing all the things. But with microservices, it has moved to like what you told left shift, like each one who is providing the service, they have to provide, and we have to take care of my application. Suppose that I am developing for energy applications, I have to take care of my energy security and other security related with all these stations. Kubernetes has to take care of that.
Correct. Yeah. So you had any question regarding that, or you just
That's what I am saying. Like, it is not that developer has to write the security for all the part of it. Like each layer they have to do their security, not developer duty to do all the security.
Yeah, see, so Kubernetes, maybe it's handled by your DevOps team, so they would be responsible that to do that. Developer maybe is writing the code, so he is responsible to take care of the code level, the security, and all those things. So overall, it's like a shared responsibility,
Yes.
right? So when you talk about security, it's a shared responsibility.
Yes.
So that is what I'm saying. Someone had a question?
Yeah. Let's say initially I'll create a cluster and a pod and a container. After that I'll deploy application. So in that initially, as shift-left perspective, I need to think what are the basic security I need to do that.
Yes.
So that's all we, as a developer, have to think about, right?
Correct.
So what is the first basic initial steps of security we have to take and take care of?
Yeah.
Because
So
shift-left things does that, we have to do that. What is the first couple of steps?
yeah. So see, it all starts from your requirements, design phase, all those things. So there are teams where we have to engage the application security engineer from the beginning. So there is something called as threat modeling. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, where engineers would review your data flow, like how the data flows in your system, and then he will come up with the probable threats that exist. For a developer, it's more likely that InfoSec team would give a certain guidelines for best practices that has to be followed, like secure coding guidelines. So that has to be followed when you are doing your development.
Okay.
That time, my question was specifically with Kubernetes. That's why I mentioned create a cluster, then container, and deploy application.
Okay, that I'll come to that. I have some things that I can speak about. So I'll come to that. Okay, I'll move on. So I don't think I have talked much about this. So what is Kubernetes? So it's a container orchestration as a It's used for automating your deployment, scaling, and also containerizing the application. We had other tools before this, but Kubernetes was the something that came in and everyone started using it. It's also self-healing, load balancing, scaling, resource policies, etc. Everything it has. I just wrote a subset of its features. And what is governance and compliance in Kubernetes? So governance provides you the ability to enforce certain policy on all the resources that you deploy in Kubernetes. Sir asked about okay, what are the certain things that I need to take care. So there are some policies that have been defined. There are some standards that have been defined. Some frameworks that have been defined. So if you take care of those frameworks, so that your initial level of security would be taken care. I will show you some of the demos then. So it ensures that your deployed resources follow best practices that are compliant with certain organization and regulatory bodies. Okay. So regulatory standards like there would be some standards that are enforced by a government or any regulating body, and even organizations might have some standards that are being enforced, that when you deploy certain Kubernetes resources, you have to follow these standards. And here you see I mentioned policies, right? So what are these policies? So there are certain policies in Kubernetes. Pod security admission, that is one of the inbuilt policies that is available. It was called as pod security. I think prior to 1.25 it was called pod security policies. They renamed it as pod security admission now. So it has 3 security levels: privileged, baseline, and restricted, and can be set to audit, warn, or enforce. I have a demo for pod security admissions, so I'll just show you that. Network policies. So this is basically segmenting your pods, right? So when you create any pods in your Kubernetes clusters, they can, by default, they can talk to each other, but you don't want to do that. So you can use network policies for that. Resource quota and limit ranges. So that is basically, limiting how much of resource you can allot for your resources in Kubernetes. And then there is third-party policies, which is OPA and Kiver, and many others, but I just took 2 names. How many of you have worked here on OPA? Open Policy Agent. Okay. Kiver, no? Anyone? So these are some of the policies that are available in Kubernetes. And example policies, these are just an example. So non-root, ensure that containers within the pod do not run as root. So this is one of the policy. Maybe your organization would have set this policy, right? Or maybe at regulatory level, there would be a policy saying, don't use overprivileged, resources. So if you are running something as a root, then I think it will have a lot of privileges, right? How many of you are using your Docker as root? No? No one? I think most of them do that.
Yeah, we may not be aware actually.
You will not be aware. Okay. Maybe if you speak to your InfoSec team or something, they would be aware of this.
The default user for every Docker image is root, right?
By default it is root. So that's what we are. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there should be that run as user, but mostly we don't use that because it will kind of block me from doing my work usually, right? So we just do run that user and that goes into the production. But there are consequences if you are running anything as a root in Docker. A root in Docker can become root in the host machine as well. Okay, if there are container escapes and things like that. Resource limit. Ensure CPU and memory limit is defined for a pod to prevent abuse of cluster resources. So this is one of the policies. Restrict unapproved images. Why do you think this would be a policy? Restrict unapproved images.
Malware.
Malware. Okay. Vulnerabilities.
there could be fake
License issues.
sites which could change image and inject coding codes.
Okay. Okay.
So that's what we
Third party, yeah. Supply chain attack is the most, common attack in cybersecurity, okay, in application security space, supply chain security. So developers usually, like, they get code from third party libraries and then they just use that, right? So similarly, developers could use any Docker images. So if I want to do any POC, I just go to Docker Hub, just see if any image is there, just do Docker pull, tap, and done. But we never see that, okay, if it has any vulnerabilities or not, right? For example, if you are trying to download something from GitLab, open source, what do you see in that? I mean, do you just, see that, this serves my purpose, or any other parameters you check?
License.
Licensing you check, okay, that is good. Any other?
Open issues for that.
Okay, you check that, or you
I don't.
okay. So usually developers do not check that, but I think it's good to check if it has any open vulnerabilities, how many forks has been done, what are the number of contributors, when was it last changed, like you can see, right, like 3 months back, a year back. So usually when I go and if I see that, a year back or something like that, I don't use that thing. So those are some of the practices that you can follow. Restrict ports, container within pods must not be certain, use certain ports. So some of these are policies. So we will try to use some tools. I'll show you a demo where you can enforce these policies, and if these policies are violated, then it will give you an alert and it will not be persist to further for ETDC cluster or whatever it is. So the first example that I'm going to show you is about pod security admission. How many of you have used this in Kubernetes?
security context only.
Sorry?
Is this security context?
No, this is not security. Security context you use in the YAML, right? Security context is related to this, but this is not talking about security context. Okay. So pod security admission is an implementation of pod security standards. So it is used to restrict the behavior of pods. For example, when you deploy a pod, you don't want a pod to be using a root account, right? So it will have that kind of checks here. And there are different policy modes here: enforce, audit, and warning. Enforce, what it does is, it will, if any pod violates the policy, it will be rejected. It won't be persisted to ECDC. ETCD. Audit is about, it will be persisted, but it will add a log in your Kubernetes log. Warning, it shows you in the UI itself, maybe in your console, that this pod is persisted, but this is the warning. And there are some profiles like privileged. Privileged is least restrictive. For example, if you are in the development mode, you can use this privileged profile. You can test your application. Baseline is like minimal, it's in average, it's in between. Restricted is the most restricted one. It doesn't allow you to persist the pod if it has found some certain security violations. I'll just show you a demo for pod security admission.
One question.
Yeah.
So is this applicable both for development and production, or for development?
We need to
No, this is applicable. This is applicable in Kubernetes cluster. So if you are having a Kubernetes cluster in your local, you can apply this policy, or your DevOps team would have applied this policy in your production Kubernetes cluster. And whenever any deployments happen or any pod is created there, and if it violates that policy, then it will stop creating that pod. So Uh, So I have a control plane here. This is my master node. Okay. I have one control plane and one worker node, right? I have a policy here. So this can be applied to the namespace. For example, if I show you, here, I have created a namespace and I have added it as a label. So these policies can be added as a label. So if you see here, I have added a policy enforcement enforce and it is baseline. And then I have audit, which is restricted mode, and a warning, which is a restricted mode. Okay. So now what I am going to do is I am going to create one pod. So this is the pod that I am going to create.
Cluster specific, right?
Yeah, it is cluster specific. So this is a pod, a simple pod, and it is having a Nginx image and its container port is 80, right? So I am going to deploy this pod into my cluster. Oh, okay. First I need to. Okay. Okay. So if you see, I had a restricted policy and it would say me warning, right? So it says allow privilege escalation is not equal to false. So that is one restricted. So what is the other one? So drop all capabilities, run as non-root, not equal to true, right? So right now this pod is running as a root user, right? But I have given a restricted for warning as well as audit. So since I have given it for warning, it shows up here in the console itself. But if you would have gone to Kubernetes logs, there also you would have seen the same thing, right? So this, you know, if this was somewhere in the production workload, right, production cluster, would you allow this pod to persist into a production? Is it safe? It's not safe because it is not using any specific user. It is also having allow privilege escalation not equal to false. So it's very scary thing. So you can use this kind of policies in Kubernetes to see that you are secure. Okay. So I will leave up to you like how you want to do this study. But pod security admission is one of the policies that is available out of the box for you in Kubernetes. There is some configuration you need to do in API server, but once you do that, it is available for you.
Where is the rule defined for these policies?
What is the?
So, in the labels you are specifying that baseline restricted. So, what is the rule?
Okay.
What is the rules?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. Not added here, but let me. You see here in restricted, it says these are the restricted values like allow privilege escalation, init containers, ephemeral containers.
So these are predefined rules.
These are predefined rules. You
But we
cannot
can
change that.
change this, but we can write our own rules.
You can write your own rules. So there are other policy engines that you can use, but this is already inbuilt in Kubernetes. So you cannot change that. And if you see here, there are like run as non-root. It will check for these things when you are creating a pod. You have to enable this in your Kubernetes API server and then label namespace with whatever I have labeled and then it will apply. Okay.
What does it mean like audit?
Audit, see, it's for you to, before you try that in production, you want to test it. So that is where you use that audit and warning mode. If you just use the enforce mode, then there would be some breaking things, right? So that is why you use that, test it, do a POC or whatever, and then enforce it. Okay. So before that, I also wanted to just highlight that this is how, Kubernetes is all about the API server, right? So whenever a request goes in, there is an authentication and authorization that happens first. Okay, that is at the base level. Then there is something called as admission controllers. Now this is completely optional ones, but there are few inbuilt admission controllers. So there is something called as mutating admission controller. Then there is a validating admission controller. What does mutating admission controller does? It gets the objects and it will mutate, like make some changes to that. Then it goes to object schema validation, does some validation of schema if it is proper or not. Then there is a validating admission controller, which will validate, okay, if this object which is as per some policy. So that then it will be persisted to HCD. Right? I don't want to go into deep into this. It's a different topic altogether. But there are some webhooks that are registered for this admission controllers, and that will take care of doing that mutating and the validation. Did you guys know about this? How the API server works? You are aware of? You are able to relate, right? Okay. Another policy engine that I want to speak about is Kaivalcom. I think you already worked on that. And this is called as policy as a code. So you can basically write a code and define your policies. And these policies can be according to your industrial standards or whatever your organization, like if it has some standards, then you can write those policies. For example, you can write a policy saying that I don't want to deploy any container images apart from certain registry. So in that way you are secure because you are only allowing your images from a predefined registry, not from any other registry. So this is declarative, like YAML, so you don't have to learn any new language as such. And it can validate, mutate, generate, and also do a cleanup of resources. Okay, I'll just show you a demo of Kubernetes. And whatever I'm speaking today is all open source. So you can just go home and try this. But don't try this in the production system. Okay?
Can you give some idea about
I'll show you an example. You will get an idea what it is. And if I'm not able to answer there, then I can talk to you. So we can do it. I wanted to do primary sector. No, it's a no, it's just did was I created one policy in Kubernetes which is require request limits. Okay. So if you see here, so this is how you write policies in Kubernetes. So if you go to their website, they have a list of commands or annotations that you can use. But what it does is, this is an enforced policy, and it will validate if any containers that I create has a memory and a limit defined. In limits it has memory, and in request also it has memory and CPU defined. So this is my requirement, that my pods should have some kind of memory and limit defined. Otherwise, I am not going to create this pod in my Kubernetes cluster. So let's try to create a pod without this limits. I already have it.
There's a typo in replica.
Typo? So I'm trying to create one pod which doesn't have a memory limits defined. You see here, it just has a container name and image and ports. Okay, so you see here, now I get some, since I enforced it, I get some error here, validation error, CPU and memory resource request and limits are required. Right? So this is example of one of the policies that you can create using Kubernetes. Similarly, you can create many other policies saying that I want the image to be from certain registry. So you can write a regex expression or something like that. So all these policies are already available in the Kubernetes website.
One question. So how to include the Kubernetes policies into suppose a Kubernetes is running, how can I include the Kubernetes policies into the existing Kubernetes setup?
Okay, for that there is an installation already available. You can run it as a, I think they have 2-3 options of installation, as an operator and as a CLI itself. So that you need to do, which I already did. Otherwise it would have taken time for me.
One question. How can impose these restriction across the organization, across the cluster? These policies. Whenever people create cluster, this will be enforced.
I think this I have enforced in the cluster itself. The one that I created now, this is enforced at the cluster level. Yeah. You have an option to enforce it at cluster level, namespace level, so you have that option. Okay, now next, I think I have 5 minutes, but I might take another 10 minutes, that's fine. So now what I do is I create the same pod, and now if you see, I have given the request and limits already, request and limits, and now the pod is created. So it did not give me any warnings as such. Okay, I'll just show you one more example for mutating. I think someone asked about mutating. Yeah. So let me delete these two deployments first. Okay. And then I create a new policy which is a mutating policy. So if you see here, what it does is it's a mutating policy here, and it goes and checks the spec. It checks if it has a resource limit. If it is not having, then it will add a default resource limit, and it will have a it will also add a memory and CPU. So that is what it does. So let me take one more YAML here and copy this and paste this, and it did not have any resource and CPU limit defined here, but it created the pod, right? So now how do we verify that it has created it with the default resource limit? So I have already given I already have a command here. So if you see here, it already has added the limits and request with CPU and memory limits already for me. So this is the default configuration that is being added to all my pods when I do the initial, when I created that pod initial, right? So this way you can enforce some defaults already, so that there is no any security impact for your applications. This is called mutating. Sorry? Yeah, generate is like creating the resources, and cleaning up is like deleting. So I don't have examples for that, but that you can do using the kubectl commands.
So this policy was in the native cluster, which you created a cluster.
Yes.
So if I go with EKS or EKS, I'm just curious in your mind. So this kind of policy, how we can apply here? Is there anything tools is there already available?
For that, you have already, I think, cloud vendors themselves have some tools. There is also something called as Prisma Cloud. That also is helpful. But I don't think anything will stop you from also using Giverno. But if you want to use these kind of things even in your cloud, whichever cloud you are using, that also comes with a cost, right? They won't give you out of the box. They will call you for some meetup or something, and then they talk about, okay, we have this thing. So it comes up with a cost. But definitely if you are using managed Kubernetes, all these things, whatever I showed you, will be there by default. But you will not know what it is doing, how it is doing. But at least here, if you are doing this, you know, like now you know, right, these things are there, this is happening. So, yeah. But you can still use these tools.
There might be UIs to import these.
They have UIs.
That's right.
Yeah, they have all this UI and all those things.
There is another tool called Periphery, right? Periphery or Telegram, something.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I'm not using it. It's a paid tool. Okay.
This thing we can install as a file management, right? Let's say.
Helm is also,
Yeah.
helm charts also.
Then apply
But
Yes.
But one thing, for example, if you use AWS or Azure, they will provide some extra tool or something, right?
Yeah.
But the GCP tool is Google Cloud, so Kubernetes is their product. So they will provide extra or it will invite with
I didn't get your question. Sorry.
GCP.
Ah.
Kubernetes is the Google product, right?
Yeah.
So in the GCP cloud, somebody using infrastructure, I mean,
No.
product. So that all that thing will come in built, or they will have a extra tool for charging also?
I don't think so they will give all this. This will be like added security features that you might have to.
So you will have to pay, you will have to pay extra.
Yeah, from their marketplace or wherever you might have to pay for that. It doesn't come by default.
These are mostly open source.
Open source.
It's called EKS. EKS output provide EKS. We can install the
Kitchen is not in.
Yeah, you can
Nice,
use that.
that was actually.
Yeah, it will be charged.
Because Kubernetes is Google product.
Yes, but it's also like a
Even Kubernetes is fine, but if something enhanced, that means another tool is
Okay, actually I had two more tools, but I think I won't have much time. I just want to show you one more tool called Inspect. I think you guys could have used this Inspect by any chance? No? Inspect tool by Jeff? No? Okay. So Inspect has some policies, and they also you can use this tool to run against your Kubernetes cluster to find any vulnerability. So I'll just run this tool and show you what happens. So, sir asked a question that, okay, what are some of the prerequisite or like initial things that I need to consider when I install a Kubernetes cluster? So, CIS benchmark is like a set of practices, that is a curated list of practices from industry experts, and they have come up with some standards that has to be followed so that you have a secure Kubernetes cluster. So what happened now is it went and checked my cluster for all those practices. So if you see here, this failed and it gave me saying that 59 failures. So let's review one of them here.
Is it kind of posture management?
Yes, posture management. But it is not like, it depends on you how you take this report and put to your tool that shows you the results. But this is an open source, it comes with a cost. So you have to get this report in JSON or something and then ingest it to your tool that does your posture management. So this can be running as part of your CI/CD pipeline. Okay, and if you run now as part of your CI/CD pipeline, already you have so many failures. So the job would fail. So ideally, you would have run this before, fix all this, and then put it in your CI/CD, right? So it says ensure that kubelet config is set to root. So it passes that. Here it says kubelet permission are set to 644. It is not set to 644. So you have to go and fix that. And later, as part of your CI/CD, this can run and it can give you the results. Yes, correct.
I think you would have ran this in your control plane mode, right? Because it is accessing usually in bad days, Kubernetes will not be having to access control planes and all, right? So, do you think it will be advantage there to run
No,
this?
see, this CIS benchmarking, all those things would come by default in your managed Kubernetes. So they will have a separate dashboard kind of thing. That doesn't come with the cost for it. It will already be part of your.
This would have been already been taken care by the service provider.
Yeah, they would have already been taken care. But it will still it will, like, it's up to you, like how you go and interpret that result and patch it. So
It will want, but it will not.
It
will not
It's
restrict.
allowing to deploy your root container as well. When in EKS, that is allowing us to want it when deploying with the root. But it is allowing to deploy your root container. You can deploy your container as a root as well in EKS. They are not restricting.
okay.
This thing, I don't think it will be already is there.
This is already in there.
Mostly for vanilla Kubernetes, right?
See, this is about things that you need to take care in
Audit
default.
of your cluster.
The one which I showed policy is something in your hand. You can add it so that you are more secure. So I think with that I'm going to end my talk. I think if you have any more questions, then please, get in touch with me.
One question.
Yes.
So I saw your slide, the last slide was Aqua.
Yeah, Aqua Security, they are having a lot of products, Driving, Cubescape. So they have a lot of products. Again, those are open source. So
Can you do for the image scanning, the Kubernetes scanning?
yes, yeah. I can show you after this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Siyam.
Thank you, Siyam, for the nice talk.